Ethan hadn't planned on spending his summer alone, but after the divorce, it seemed inevitable. His apartment felt emptier than ever, the silence in the evenings almost unbearable. He told himself he was done with complicated relationships for now. He just wanted a break, a chance to breathe, to feel normal again. When a friend suggested a day at the pool, he agreed more out of habit than excitement. The idea of lying in the sun, listening to music, and watching people have fun felt like a harmless way to pass the hours. Nothing more. The public pool was alive with laughter and splashes, a mix of families, teenagers, and groups of friends enjoying the heat. Ethan found a quiet corner, an umbrella for shade, and eased into a lounge chair. He watched the water shimmer, sunlight bouncing off the surface in sparkling patterns, and he felt a sense of calm that had been missing for months. It was simple, ordinary, and for the first time in a while, it felt good to just exist without thinking about work, bills, or the wreckage of his marriage. That's when he noticed him. Liam. He was leaning against the poolside railing, hair damp, a crooked grin on his face as he tossed a beach ball back and forth with someone just out of Ethan's view. There was an effortless confidence in the way he moved, a natural charm that drew attention without him even trying. Something about the way Liam's eyes scanned the pool, the easy tilt of his head when he laughed, made Ethan feel both nervous and intrigued. He looked away almost immediately, embarrassed that he'd been staring, but curiosity kept pulling his gaze back. It wasn't long before Liam's attention seemed to find him too. A splash of water, innocent enough, sent Ethan's sunglasses sliding down his nose. Liam laughed, that easy, warm laugh, and waded over. "Hey," he said casually, though there was an unmistakable spark in his voice. "You're sitting all alone over here. Come join the game." He gestured to a small group, tossing a volleyball in the deep end. Ethan hesitated. He was shy, self-conscious after months of isolation, but there was something in Liam's smile that made saying no impossible. As Ethan walked toward the game, he felt a nervous energy he hadn't experienced in a long time. Liam kept up a light conversation, teasing him when he almost dropped the ball, laughing when Ethan clumsily dove for a shot. The physical closeness, the accidental touches when passing the ball, the brushing of arms and shoulders, all of it made Ethan's heart race. It was thrilling, electric, and entirely confusing. He hadn't intended to feel this way about anyone, especially someone he'd just met at a pool. Between games, they sat on the edge of the pool, feet dangling in the water. Liam leaned back, stretching, and for a moment their shoulders touched. Ethan felt a jolt at the contact, a warmth that wasn't just from the sun. Liam laughed at a joke Ethan made, and the sound settled into him, leaving a strange, pleasant ache. For all the loneliness he'd felt these past months, this connection was different. It was immediate, uncomplicated, and dangerously compelling. Ethan caught himself thinking about Liam when he wasn't looking, wondering what he'd be doing when Ethan went home, imagining small scenarios that made him smile. A part of him tried to rationalize it as harmless fun, a fleeting summer distraction, but another part, a louder, more insistent part, knew that this was something else entirely, something that might not be as innocent as it seemed. The afternoon passed quickly. Friends left, children splashed in the shallow end, and the sun started to dip lower in the sky. Ethan found himself reluctantly packing his things, his body still buzzing from the laughter and the heat and, most of all, from Liam's presence. As he walked to his car, he glanced back once. Liam was waving, a playful grin on his face, and Ethan felt a flicker of anticipation for a day that hadn't even been planned yet. Driving home, the city lights reflected off the windshield, a soft glow that matched the uneasy warmth in his chest. He thought about Liam's smile, his easy confidence, the way he had made a simple afternoon feel charged with possibility. Ethan knew this was more than a casual acquaintance. Something had shifted in him, quietly but unmistakably. He didn't know where it would lead or what complications might come, but for the first time in months, he felt alive again. That day at the pool hadn't been just a way to pass the hours. It had been the start of something that neither of them could yet name, something that would change everything in ways Ethan wasn't ready to fully admit, not even to himself. After that first afternoon at the pool, Ethan couldn't stop thinking about Liam. It wasn't just the playful laughter or the casual touches. It was the way Liam made him feel alive again, like a part of him that had been dormant for months was suddenly awake. He tried to push the thoughts aside, telling himself it was harmless, a fleeting distraction, but no matter what he did, Liam's image lingered. A text from Liam the next day made his chest tighten. "Hey, want to grab a coffee later?" Ethan stared at it for a long moment, his finger hovering over the screen before he finally typed back, "Sure." Meeting Liam outside the pool felt surprisingly natural. They walked down a tree-lined street toward a small cafe, their conversation flowing easily. Liam had a way of making ordinary things feel fascinating. The way he described his work, his travel stories, even the way he remembered the tiniest details from their conversation at the pool. Ethan found himself laughing more than he had in months. There was a spark, an unspoken electricity that thrummed just below the surface every time Liam leaned in to emphasize a point, or brushed a stray strand of hair from his forehead. It was innocent, yet charged. Over coffee, their connection deepened. Liam listened intently when Ethan talked about the divorce, never prying, only offering quiet empathy. For the first time in a long while, Ethan felt heard, truly seen. There was an intimacy here that wasn't physical, but far more powerful, a closeness that made him forget the world outside the cafe walls. He felt a tension in his chest, a mixture of longing and guilt. He was drawn to Liam, undeniably so, but the moral lines of his past life still lingered in his mind. Could he really let himself fall for someone so quickly? The weeks that followed were a series of small, meaningful encounters. Coffee turned into walks in the park, then casual dinners. Text messages became frequent, playful, full of inside jokes and teasing banter. Every interaction seemed to pull Ethan further into Liam's orbit. He found himself counting the hours until he could hear from him again, replaying their conversations late at night when sleep eluded him. There was a thrill in the secrecy, too, subtle and understated, knowing that this connection existed in a space removed from his everyday obligations and his past life. One evening, they returned to the pool, this time in the late afternoon. The sun was low, casting long shadows across the water, turning it into a glittering expanse of gold and orange. Liam suggested a playful game, and as they splashed each other, their laughter mingling with the gentle lapping of the water, Ethan felt a jolt every time their hands collided. Every touch, accidental or not, sent warmth through him. He tried to rationalize it as coincidence, but even he knew it was more than that. There was a rhythm to their interactions, a subtle choreography of glances, smiles, and fleeting touches that neither could ignore. Later, sitting side by side on the pool's edge, their feet skimming the water, Liam leaned close, speaking in a softer tone than usual. He shared something personal, a fear, a regret from his past, and Ethan listened, mesmerized. The vulnerability in Liam's voice made Ethan's own walls crumble. He reached out instinctively, brushing his hand against Liam's. The contact lingered, charged with unspoken feelings. Neither spoke at first, but the silence was heavy with significance. The air seemed to hum around them, electric with possibility, and Ethan felt a rush of desire, mingled with guilt. Ethan knew he was crossing boundaries. This wasn't just friendship anymore. The connection was becoming something he hadn't anticipated. The thought of being emotionally involved with someone new, someone who wasn't part of his old life, scared him, yet thrilled him at the same time. Liam's presence was intoxicating. Each smile, each touch, each shared glance pulling him further in. He realized he no longer wanted to resist, even as a quiet voice in the back of his mind warned him of the consequences. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the pool in deep amber tones, Ethan and Liam sat in silence. Their hands brushed again, this time lingering a little longer, and Ethan felt a moment of clarity. This wasn't a casual fling. It was a connection he hadn't expected, a bond that was growing stronger by the day. He didn't know where it would lead, or what complications might arise, but in that moment, he allowed himself to surrender to it, to embrace the possibility of something more. For the first time in months, Ethan felt truly alive, not just distracted or entertained, but seen, desired, and understood. The line between fun and something deeper had blurred, and he knew that from this point on, nothing would be quite the same. Something had shifted, quietly but unmistakably. and he couldn't ignore it. The days that followed felt surreal to Ethan. Every time he saw Liam, his chest tightened with anticipation, and even the smallest gestures, a smile, a joke, a brush of a hand, sent warmth through him. The connection they shared was no longer casual. It had grown into something deeper, something that made Ethan question the quiet life he had imagined for himself after the divorce. He hadn't expected to feel this way so quickly, and yet the feelings were undeniable. One evening, they decided to meet at the pool once more. The sun was low, casting the water in hues of amber and rose, and the world seemed quieter, slower. Ethan arrived first, leaning against the railing, letting the cool air wash over him. He thought about how far he had come, from loneliness and doubt to anticipation and longing. When Liam appeared, Ethan's heart jumped. Liam's presence had a way of pulling him out of his own head, making everything else fade into the background. They sat on the edge of the pool, feet dangling in the water, watching the sunlight dance across the surface. For a moment, they didn't speak, simply enjoying the shared silence. Then Liam leaned closer, just slightly, so their shoulders touched. Ethan felt a rush, a heady mix of comfort and desire. There was no need for words. The touch conveyed what neither had admitted out loud. Liam's hand brushed against Ethan's once, and this time neither pulled away. It was deliberate, yet tender, a gesture full of meaning without needing to be named. Ethan thought about his past life, his divorce, and the quiet ache of loneliness that had lingered for months. Yet now, sitting there with Liam, he realized that those days of isolation had led him here, to a bond he hadn't expected, but now couldn't imagine being without. The risk, the moral ambiguity, the uncertainty, all of it faded in the warmth of this moment. He felt alive, truly seen, and for the first time in a long while, he allowed himself to hope. Liam spoke softly, sharing something personal about his family, a small story that made Ethan laugh. The sound of Liam's laughter was magnetic, pulling Ethan closer. Without thinking, he reached out and took Liam's hand, holding it gently. The gesture was electric, yet tender, a promise of trust and connection. Liam squeezed his hand back, a silent acknowledgement that what they shared was more than fleeting fun. It was something significant, something worth exploring, even if it existed in a space complicated by the past. As the sun dipped lower, turning the water into a shimmering mirror of oranges and pinks, Ethan felt a sense of clarity he hadn't expected. This wasn't just a summer distraction. This was real, meaningful, and transformative. The bond he had with Liam was awakening something in him he thought had been lost forever. The capacity to care deeply, to be vulnerable, to trust someone new after so much heartbreak. The poolside emptied, leaving them alone with the gentle lapping of water and the soft hum of distant evening sounds. They sat in silence, hands still intertwined, and Ethan allowed himself to imagine a future where this connection continued to grow. He knew the path ahead might be complicated, that there would be questions, perhaps even judgment, but he also knew he couldn't ignore what he felt. Liam had changed something in him, something fundamental, and for the first time in months, Ethan felt whole. Eventually, Liam leaned back, resting his head against Ethan's shoulder. Ethan didn't move. He let the moment linger, absorbing the warmth, the closeness, the quiet intimacy of it all. The world outside didn't matter right now. What mattered was this connection, this bond that had blossomed from casual laughter at a pool into something deeply emotional and profoundly stirring. Ethan realized that what had started as harmless fun had shifted into something more, a romantic bond, a connection that filled the emptiness he had carried for so long. He didn't know exactly what the future held, whether challenges would arise, or how complicated things might become, but he felt ready to embrace this new chapter, to explore the possibilities, and to allow himself to feel fully again. As the sky darkened and stars began to appear, Ethan and Liam sat side by side, hands still clasped, smiles quiet but meaningful. Ethan understood that the first spark at the pool had ignited a flame neither could ignore, and though the journey ahead was uncertain, he welcomed it with an open heart. In Liam, he had found not just fun, not just companionship, but a bond that had the potential to change everything. And for the first time in a long while, Ethan felt truly, beautifully alive.